Hey everyone, what's up? Mike here, Analog Attack, back again to talk about Japanese hardcore again. Back by popular demand. I just did a video talking about 17 of my favourite Japanese punk and hardcore records. If you've seen it, there was a lot of glaring omissions. There's so many great records over the years. I've got another 15 here today that are all fantastic, that weren't mentioned in the other video. People commented on the last video about their favourites, and there's some of those that I haven't even included today either. But yeah, it's going to be a great time nerding out about Japanese punk and hardcore records over the years. Like I said, one of my favourite things to talk about is Japanese punk and hardcore, so let's have a good time talking about 15 more great records from Japan. I think the earliest one I've got today is from 1981 or 1980. We'll see. We'll get to it. The first pick is actually one that Brian mentioned in the comments of the last episode. You should have put this one in, and I talked about Friction instead in that video. But yeah, let's get to this one now. It is a classic. It came out in 1981 on Japan Records. It's Inu. Machizo Machida is the vocalist. It's kind of his band, really. He's the guy in the thumbnail too. But yeah, released in the same year as Trash by the Stalin. There's some similarities between this band and the Stalin. I think, especially vocally. Machizo Machida's vocal style is kind of similar to Michiro Endo's. But this band is kind of more new wavy, more punky. Not as aggressive as the Stalin, but man, this is an absolute classic Japanese punk record, which luckily has just been reissued by Mesh Key. Was that last year? This year? A couple of years ago? But should be easy-ish to get outside of Japan, and it won't break the bank. And also, his solo records are really good as well. And one of them has just been reissued, and I think another one is going to be reissued in January or February. So keep an eye out for those. I'm so excited to get those as well. But today we're talking about Inu, an absolute Japanese punk classic, mandatory record. Thanks, Brian, for reminding me of that. This one has to be in here. Speaking of the Stalin, what's your favourite Stalin album? I know a lot of my mates always go for Trash. I mean, I like Trash, don't get me wrong. Stop Jap is phenomenal, but for me, I think this one is my personal favourite. Mushi. Climax Records, 1983. I don't know, they kind of got a bit darker, a bit heavier, a bit more hardcore on this record. It's an absolute fucking masterpiece, in my opinion. They really peaked on this record. With that said, I'm one of those people that can get down with Fish In and even Video Stalin and even all the Michiro Endo solo records, but I would say those are kind of for maniacs only. So proceed with caution. I would say, yeah, if you've never heard the Stalin before, probably Stop Jap would be the best place to start, but for me, this is where it's at. Mushi, the Stalin, classic, absolute masterpiece of a record. This next pick, man, it's taken me years, decades to kind of come round to this band. It's funny because people over the years have been this is the perfect band for you. This is this should be right up your alley. But I've actually kind of rebought this band's early discography maybe 3 times now since I've been living in Japan. And I kind of rebought it again because you can still find all these records super cheap. I'm talking about the Willard. And this record. Good Evening, Wonderful Fiend, Captain Records. You know how much I love Captain Records. This totally fits at home on Captain because it's kind of poppy. I mean, this band totally Damned worship, but not really, really early Damned. It's more I don't know, the sort of poppier side of the Black Album. It's interesting though, because this did come out in the same year as the Damned's Phantasmagoria, but it ain't as gothic as that record. I know, when this band is on their own, the songwriting is incredible. He's got a really great voice, actually. Does kind of sound like Dave Vanian. But there is some cheese in there, and finally I've kind of managed to get past the cheese and kind of appreciate what a great band this record is. There's another record called Indies, which is like a compilation of their early singles. But I don't know. I think this is the best place to start with the Willard. Good evening, wonderful fiend. Captain Records, 1985, and I'm happy to have finally come around to this band because they're a real fun listen. Can't do this without talking about perhaps the best local band. They're about to play their 35th anniversary show here in Osaka. They're a Kyoto band. I've probably seen this band more than any other band here in Osaka. Maybe Warhead is the band I'm talking about. I was going to say Nightmare, I've seen a lot too, but Warhead is the band I've probably seen the most. I'm talking about their first LP, which was originally only on CD, on Bloodsucker, 1992, Kono Omoe o Dokoe. We were disappointed with this record, or this album, when it came out, weren't we? Remember, like, after Cry of Truth came out, which is like one of the best Japanese hardcore 7 inches of all time, completely unhinged, jumps off the grooves record. And then this came out, and it's the production, the way it's produced, I think, it's more refined. Jun's vocals are mixed differently. It's cleaner sounding. But man, I think, looking back in the rear view mirror, I don't know, this really has kind of stood the test of time. I like it more now than I did back then, just because it was kind of a disappointment when it came out, and it wasn't, a continuation of Cry of Truth. It was a sort of a slicker version of that, I guess. But yeah, I love this record, love this band. Like I said, still active, 35 years in the game and still playing fucking hardcore punk. They haven't gone rock and roll like some of the other Japanese bands have done. Pure hardcore punk lifers. Full respect to Warhead and Jun and Araki for keeping this band going for 35 years. I think they started the band when they were like teenagers in junior high school. That's why, they were like teenagers when Cry of Truth came out. But yeah, Warhead. Gotta love Warhead. Alright, first time I came to Japan, I saw this band twice. And I have to say, they were quite terrifying to me back then. The second time they weren't supposed to play. They jumped on a bill with Poison, Arts, and Rose. And this band, Genoa, were going to play, and they cancelled. And so instead of them, this band played. I'm talking about Tetsuare. Now, my pick was going to be the first LP. I only have a bootleg of it now. But I think a lot of people will agree with me that this kind of LP is a little bit too long. It gets a little bit samey. There's some like classic tracks like Indian Death Rock. And I love the opener. They played that both times I saw them. Highway to Hell. It's such a great opening number. But yeah, I do think this is kind of not that exciting. I mean, I do love it, obviously. So, I've got to talk about Tetsuare. So I'm going to go with the second LP. It's shorter. It's much better produced. The bass sound is phenomenal. And I think I like it more as well because I used to go and see them play a lot, like just after I had moved to Japan. So the set list would be heavy on this record. It came out in when did it come out? Like early 2000s, right? This came out, but man, I don't know. So back in the old days, they would start with Highway to Hell, but now they are starting off with Go, which is, again, it's similar, right? It's this slower song for an intro, a live show. And then, of course, Burning Spirits, the theme tune of Burning Spirits Hardcore. Obviously, Deathside had already done Burning Spirit. Now you've got, like, Burning Spirits with that kind of iconic B-U-R-N-I-N-G chorus, which you would like always sing along to, and it's kind of good memories of going to see him and like singing along with that. So I'm going to pick Tetsuare 2 as my favorite Tetsuare record. Great band. They've not been active for a while. They haven't been playing. They haven't officially broken up or anything, but what a fucking amazing band they were to see live. And I was just thinking, actually, as I was talking, when I saw them, like, the first album hadn't come out yet. Like, I saw them a year before that album came out, but they were playing all the songs off it, and everyone kind of knew the songs. So, obviously, Japanese hardcore is really more about the live show. Japanese punk bands are not very prolific when it comes to releasing records. It's all about the live show. All right, this band's first LP just got reissued by General Speech, and I think that LP is probably most people's favorite by that band. I don't know, man. I love the second LP, and I can't show the front of it. Going back to King's World Records, going back to 1987, the Swankies, Never Can Eat Swank Dinner. Now, why do I like this record? Well, I love the Sex Pistols, and you know, on this record they lean mostly into, like, you know, their Sex Pistols influenced punk rock, and I think it's just fucking a great record to drink beer and pogo to. I love it. Obviously, I'm not saying the first LP isn't great. It is. Obviously, that's kind of the rare record and the one that everyone's after. But it's funny, though, because since Tom reissued it, prices of the original have kind of gone down. I saw one for less than half price of what it used to be a year ago, just the other day. But yeah, this is going to be my pick for the Swankies. Again, Sex Pistols, punk as fuck, punk rock out of Kyushu in 1987. Lovely stuff. Lovely stuff. All right, speaking of punk rock, this band formed in 1977. They're from Nagoya. And if you love fucking punk, raw 77 style punk rock, you can't go wrong with this one. It came out in 1984. Talking about Star Club, really one of Japan's first punk bands. This is fucking such an undeniable rock. You know, I was talking about the Blue Hearts record last week, and that came out after this actually. But and I was like saying about how it, you know, that record sort of stands up against any kind of 77 punk record out of the UK. This is almost one of those as well. It's just undeniably great, snotty, catchy, obnoxious punk as fuck punk rock. And I love the Star Club. Man, they're still going as well. They have so many records out. I can't keep up. There's about 15 or more or less, about 15 maybe, kind of CD only albums. They keep pumping them out. They're still going. So fair play to them. Star Club. This is a classic. This is a Japanese punk record that must be in every Japanese punk lover's collection, I would say. Okay, let's go local. This is a glaring omission from last time. The fastest band on Selfish Records, and a big influence on Napalm Death and probably lots of grindcore bands. Talking about S.O.B, of course. Don't Be Swindled, Selfish Records, 1987. Honestly, you know, obviously I do love this band, but I don't really pull out this record that often. When I do, it's always a treat to kind of remember what a great band they are. People might prefer Leave Me Alone. I know. I saw them when they came to England on that first tour with Napalm Death, and when I think about that, I remember about how many people in the crowd were not having it. They were like, you know, this is sort of a Japanese version of Napalm Death, and there was some sort of racist comments, blah, 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 blah. You know, people didn't know that this band were sort of playing this kind of music before Napalm Death, and again, they're still going. Obviously, Tetsuare passed away many years ago, but they're still going and playing shows. Yeah, I mean, you can't really talk about Japanese hardcore without talking about S.O.B, and probably one of the most influential Japanese hardcore bands, like outside of Japan, in kind of, you know, the development of like grindcore and fastcore and stuff like that. Don't Be Swindled, Selfish Records, 1987. I briefly mentioned this band in the last video because we were talking about Bastard, and I mentioned drummer Koba has been playing in this band, and it's kind of timely because they're getting the Relapse treatment. This record is going to be reissued by Relapse, and some of their other records are going to be reissued by Relapse too. Rockin' Sweden, Total Hardcore. This is the original Bloodsucker record pressing. Didn't this get reissued outside of Japan anyway by like Partners in Crime? Anyway, this record came out in 98, which was the year I moved to Japan, and I do remember buying the CD of it. and just thinking, man, this kind of takes me back, and it kind of made me fall in love with Japanese hardcore all over again. The 1-2 opening punch of Smoking Slugger and Magnificent Trip, I don't think they ever topped that. I do like the other Rocky and Sweden albums after this, but for me, like, they peaked on this. Koba's drumming is like ferocious, like it was in Bastard. The vocalist isn't singing in quite the higher range that he started to do on the next album. Just ferocious attack, and the weed angle is a little bit corny. I mean, I'm not too into that, but man, this is an undeniable record, and it's already, 1998. It's already fucking old. Yeah, lovely stuff. And if you don't have it, you're gonna get a chance pretty soon to be able to pick it up on some like ugly coloured splatter vinyl, I'm sure. But Rocky in Sweden, total hardcore, THC. I talked about S.O.B, right, going to the UK, but there was another band that went to the UK before they did, thanks to Calv of Heresy and In Your Face Records. And okay, let's talk about this. I also saw this band in like 1990, but they'd already been to the UK. I saw them in Japan, like I just said, with Tetsuare and Poison Arts. But in the UK, and Calv, you've got to tip your hat to him for putting this record out. But in the UK, we kind of got this one. This one had already been released in Japan on Dogma Records with different artwork, and we got this one as well, the split LP with Sick. And really, neither of these records are, they're not as good as what had come before. So I don't know. I don't think people were too impressed with Rose Rose, because Moshavas isn't the greatest record in the world. But I will say this is going to be my Rose Rose pick for today. I fucking love this album. This one came out on Dogma Records as well in '88. It's Kill Your Brain. I know. I don't think they captured this like ever again. It's kind of a lightning in a bottle record. It's kind of, the production's like super distorted. It's crossover. It's metal as fuck. But I don't know. There's just a certain fury and energy that they captured on this record that I don't think they ever captured again. And I think if Europe and the UK had got on this instead of Moshavas, I think it would have been a different story. But what are you going to do? Yeah, if there's only one Rose Rose record you're going to get, this is the one. Kill Your Brain, Dogma Records, 1988. Ferocious record. Okay, what about some garage punk? I don't think it would be silly not to mention arguably like the best garage punk of the last 20, 30 years. Pretty much everyone I know who went to see them says, they're one of the best bands they saw in the 90s. I saw them in the 90s too. Actually, it might be late 80s. Of course, I'm talking about Teen Generate. Come on, who doesn't like Teen Generate? If you saw them live around this time, you have to admit that they were just fucking, a powerhouse band. And I saw them with the New Bomb Turks at TJ's in Newport in the UK. And I know it was head to head with, they were just as good as New Bomb Turks. I was more familiar with the New Bomb Turks songs at that point, but man, fucking what an amazing band Teen Generate were. And yeah, garage punk genre, but punk as fuck. And yeah, I mean, nobody did it better back then than Teen Generate. Let's go local again. I think maybe one of those things again where people might prefer the earlier singles of this band when they were more of a Chaos UK Disorder influenced noisier band. I prefer it when they were more American hardcore influenced. So my pick is obviously going to be this one. Talking about Alto, Shoji Kimono Wabako Muru. Yeah, nobody sounds like Alto. They totally had their own sound. They, when people talk about like traditional Japanese hardcore or Burning Spirits hardcore, people never sort of lump Alto in with that because they don't sound like any of those bands. They don't sound like Death Side or Tetsuare. They really had their own thing going on, which that's what I like about them, I think. And I never saw them back in the late 80s, but Calv, who we just talked about from Heresy, he told me when I met him in Japan in 1990, he said that they were the best band of any Japanese hardcore band that he had ever seen in Japan. And I think he'd already been to Japan like 2 or 3 times at that point, so that's pretty high praise. I can imagine them being great. I've seen a live video of them from back then. It looks great. But Butcher was a great frontman and super high energy band and one of a kind hardcore band. And the single too, No Way Out, is also amazing. Kind of US hardcore influenced Japanese hardcore. Classic. Luke from Bombardment put this record in the comments on the last video, and this is a funny one. I want to take a little bit of credit for this one, because like back in, I want to say like the late 90s, early 2000s, I'd bought the CD of this and I posted about it on this kind of message board that is still going actually, and it seemed like nobody had heard of it. I mean, it was a CD only thing from Japan at the time on Slice Record, which is Poison Art's label, and it's kind of a supergroup. Chelsea from Deathside on guitar, Hiroka, the vocalist of Poison Arts, singing, Minoru from Lit Cream on bass, and Eiji from the Magnificent Mess on the drums. And of course, I'm talking about this classic Yoshihiro Hiroka and Human Arts. Okay, like take the best bits of Poison and Poison Arts and Deathside, mix them all up, and you just got this fucking incredible Burning Spirit style hardcore with some of Chelsea's best guitar playing on it. He's on fire. There's some stuff that this band did when he's not in the band, and it's like chalk and cheese, night and day. Different band. I always thought that it was Koba from Rockin' Sweden and Bastard playing drums, because the drums on this are that good. But it's not. It's Eiji from Mess. Luckily, our friends from Kick Rock Records in France put this out on vinyl. So it should be still out there. I mean, there might be people who are into Japanese hardcore who still haven't heard this record. It could be a sleeper hit. But for me, it's a top-notch recommendation. Yoshihiro Hiroka, Human Arts, classic. All right. This is another one that came out the year I moved to Japan, and I saw them a couple of times, 2 or 3 times between like 98 and like 2000, something like that. Again, like members of other bands that had come before. Kawaguchi, who was in Sicilian Blood, the vocalist Kuro was in Acid, Okayama was in Juren Soichi, and Chara, the drummer, was in Macrophage, and also Yellow Label, which is a deep cut. Yellow Label's a deep cut. But yeah, Liberate, man. The Proof of Survival. Here it is. Another Bloodsucker Records thing. Bloodsucker Records were on fire around this time, you know, along with HG Fact. I always, you know, consider this to be like Bloodsucker and HG Fact are like the third wave of Japanese hardcore. But man, yeah, this is a real like back to basic, straight ahead Japanese hardcore attack. No frills. Kind of like Ivance and bands like that were doing. No fancy guitar solos. And Kuro's vocals, man, they're so much more snarling and snotty and aggressive than they were in Acid. Great band. They got a split single with Selfish from Finland and a couple of other singles. But today I'm talking about albums. So Liberate, The Proof of Survival. Here it is. Bloodsucker Records, 1998. All right. My last pick of the day is another one that came out just after I moved to Japan. So for me, I would have bought this on CD because I wasn't allowed to buy records when I first moved here. I won't get into that. But Hakodate hardcore is a thing all of its own. I'm talking about Crude. 1999. Came out on Ko from Slang Straight Up Records. You know, this band were, you know, kind of channeling Deathside. That's probably their biggest influence. And of course, Benkei, the guitarist, plays in Deathside now. But Hakodate hardcore was a kind of a scene, you know, all by itself with Mustang and Etai and a bunch of other bands not springing to mind right now. But I know, like, most people will say the Attitude album that came off this is their best, and I wouldn't disagree with that. But for me, like I said, I bought this just after I moved to Japan, so I have kind of fond memories of like buying the CD and like falling in love with Japanese hardcore all over again because of bands like Crude and Rocky in Sweden and Advance and then kind of Judgment and Paintbox, and it kept the spirit burning in me to keep my interest levels up in Japanese hardcore. And obviously I was going to see lots of bands too, like back then in the late 90s. There we have it. I think that's going to be it. I don't think I can scrape together a part 3 of this episode, but it's always so exciting and so fun to talk about Japanese hardcore. So let's pay our respects to all the fucking incredible Japanese punk and hardcore bands that have been lucky to be given over the years, and I love it, and I'm going to keep listening to this stuff as for as long as I can. And that's about it for today. Thanks for watching as always. I'll be back again, so click that button. Was it notification? Is that what it is? That little bell that tells you when a new video is about to come out. Do that. Thanks for watching, everyone. Have a great week. See you soon.